The N64 controller has an unfortunate reputation. People seem to hate the button layout, the three-prong design, or maybe they think it's just too big. And then, of course, there's the analog stick. But no matter what anyone thinks, nothing can take away that magical feeling I had when I first held this controller that allowed me to go in all directions in a way that I never before imagined was possible. To be honest, I still love the N64 controller. But can we make it better? Well, I'm not sure yet. Let's find out. Come on, this thing is great! The A and B buttons are at just the right angle, the C buttons work fine as action buttons when needed, and the idea of a trigger under the controller seemed so novel at the time. Now look, I don't know what you kids were doing that caused your analog sticks to get all crummy, because I probably played my N64 way more than you did, and mine are still fine. Hey, I had the Mario Party blister too, and all I did was clean out the pivot points now and then with a Q-tip, though I don't know if that's really what helped preserve them.
Come on, now this thing is not awesome. Absolutely, without a doubt, my least favorite controller out there. Granted, I don't have a lot of special memories of the N64 in the first place, so that probably has a lot to do with it. It was just such a letdown for me after how much I loved the SNES controller. But that said, I do understand what they were trying to do with it. Even though I just hate the layout of the thing, I can appreciate the innovation that Nintendo was aiming for. My biggest gripe was always how the analog stick felt like it could just break off at any time, like it was a toy. Now the GameCube controller, on the other hand, while not exactly my favorite controller either, has a heck of an analog stick. It was a great size and has that slight rubber grip that's pretty great.
Okay, I'll admit, much as I love the layout of the N64 controller, analog sticks have come a long way, and the N64's is hardly in the top tier. The GameCube's ball-style pivot cap is definitely the right idea, especially for durability. And there are actually a few N64 controllers built this way. Japanese accessory maker Coury is well known for products like the essential SNES-style Coury pad for GameCube, and they actually made a very unique N64 controller with only 2 prongs and a GameCube-style analog stick. But unfortunately, it's rare and has become quite expensive. If you ever stayed in a hotel in the early 2000s, you may have found another strange N64 controller in the TV cabinet. This operated a service called LodgeNet, which allowed you to play N64 games on demand for exorbitant prices. But far more interestingly, this controller features what is essentially a GameCube-style analog stick. It's a little smaller and lacks the rubber tip, but even I remember thinking that this would be amazing to have in my own N64 controllers. Unfortunately, the LodgeNet controller ends with what looks like a telephone jack and is not compatible with a real N64 system. But that's okay, because I recently learned during one of our live streams that you can buy a GameCube-style analog stick for self-installation on eBay for like $10. I grabbed one from a seller called Ice and Fire Games, and it came in a little box that actually says GameCube-style joystick for N64. Now, I'm not one for performing difficult mods, but there's no way this is hard. So let's see how it turns out. little scary regarding the Z button there, but everything seems to feel alright, and I have to admit, that does feel pretty nice. So I'm going to go ahead and put this through its paces and see if it works out okay. But in the meantime, Coury also installed one of these, and I'm wondering if it did anything to change his opinion.
For the most part, I like it quite a bit. It feels more robust, despite being a lot looser than the original analog stick. There's very little resistance, so it's more up to you to adjust and use restraint when trying to, say, move slowly in a game. Another big difference is that there seems to be a much greater dead zone. What I mean is that you have to push the stick further for it to activate. It's possible that this was done on purpose because of the stick having less resistance. Well, I don't doubt that Try would be able to feel a more nuanced difference due to the sheer amount of time he spent on his N64. I'm more than happy to enjoy this new stick and get to know it. It was a definite improvement for me.
So, I've spent some time over the past few days with the new analog stick, and I really wish I didn't have to say this, but in addition to minor quibbles with how the build quality feels, I'm kind of disappointed for a much more significant reason. See, Coury is right in saying that the dead zone is smaller, but every degree of tilt is also quite a bit smaller, making it difficult to move carefully. But perhaps even worse, this new stick is missing a number of degrees of movement in every direction. When I noticed that Mario was turning kind of strangely, almost like he was snapping to a new direction too quickly, I soon realized exactly what was wrong. By tilting the stick straight forward, I was able to see that characters won't turn at all until the stick is moved quite a bit. With the original stick, even the slightest directional adjustment registers, and as I was swapping controllers and testing many different games, I realized just how much this matters. I thought for a moment that maybe it would be okay for racing games where stick movement is mostly left and right, but I soon found that these minor adjustments from the center are just as critical here too. As I switched back and forth between the two controllers, I felt a surprising sense of comfort when I went back to the original stick. Sure, it lacks the rubber tip, but I immediately felt so much more in control. And it's not just because I'm used to it. Maybe you hate the N64 controller so much, or your analog stick is in such dire shape that a replacement stick could be an excellent option for you. But for me, if nothing else, this experience has really given me a newfound appreciation for just what a responsive device this really is, and how well developers design their games around it. So if you've got your hands on a good N64 controller, well, be thankful and treat it right.